All right, Eli, thank you so much for joining me today on the Corey podcast. I'm so honored. I'm so honored to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm also equally as honored to be on your show, Corey.
Thank you so much. Now, let me make sure I have this part correct because I studied before you came on to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name. Is it Young or Yuang?
Eli Yeung.
Yeung? Okay,
Yeah,
I want to
that's
make
right.
sure. Okay, I studied real hard all week.
Just ask me anytime. People always get my name wrong.
I do.
It's
You know
like,
what? Some
yeah,
people are saying it's Young. It's pronounced Young. And then, like I
right.
said, I did a
Uh-huh.
couple research hits on YouTube, and they were just like, "No, it's Yuang." So I'm just one of
Really?
those people. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I just always want to get my pronunciation
No
correct.
worries about it. I'm not that strict. So,
Okay, great, great. That's good to know. So,
uh-huh.
Eli, look, we have been friends for a while on social media.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, how long has it been? Has it? I think you were saying 5 years,
Five
right?
years. Yep.
5 years. Let me tell you, let me see if you remember this as the way I do. Um, I first discovered you were making kimchi, and I was just so amazed. Yeah, I was so amazed by the whole process. I'm like, who is this guy? I'm like, it was so many different things going on. I mean, the aesthetics were so pleasing. And then,
Uh-huh.
of course, looking at you and your grandeur, I'm just like, okay, this has got to be a model. But then he's making kimchi and like he's cool. And then at the same time, it's just like, it was so much going on that just, I was
Uh-huh.
like, okay, I immediately hit follow. So that is my recollection of when
Oh,
I first discovered your account back during the pandemic.
yes, that's right. You're too kind. I think at that point of time, I actually only just moved to Belfast, and I didn't know what to do with life. Basically, I just hit 30s, and I thought like, okay, let's just try something different. Creating content and things like because life is just like about self exploration, So I did that for a while, and I enjoyed it because I miss Asian food and the accessibility for me to find like Asian food easily at the point of time. So I decided to try it out and do some research and make my own food.
Oh
So
my God. Yeah, it was like he's really a master at this. I had no clue that you were just trying it out. It just,
I was.
you mastered it. In my book, I'm just like, okay, this is the person. So, I ran out and got all of the supplies. And I have to let you know to this day,
Uh-huh.
I still don't know what I'm doing. I
I
tried
did
it.
as well. To be honest, when I first made the content, when I was doing the content, most of the time it was my first time
Okay.
making those food as well
Oh,
as I'm
wow.
recording with two cameras. So it
Oh
was
my
iPhone
gosh.
10 at the time and my very old Sony A7, which I'm still using. So I have
Yeah.
two cameras, and I recorded it, and I scripted everything, and I planned the steps, and I followed the recipe. But to be honest, I actually surprised myself because I enjoyed the
Did
food that
you?
I've made.
Oh my God. I
So it
think a
wasn't a
lot of
scam.
us, I think a lot of us during that moment had to surprise ourselves because we had no choice,
Absolutely.
but to make some food to survive. And I explored a lot with cooking. I love to cook,
Uh-huh.
but I never thought that I would be able to do a lot of recipes that I've learned during the whole pandemic. And that
Yeah.
was just such a very pivotal moment for me trying to learn how to keep myself busy. And I have to say,
Yes.
when I'm watching you prepare that food, it wasn't just the preparation of the food, but it was absolutely your presence.
Oh,
You just had this warmth about you, this steadiness. I never forgot that. So that's
you're too
why
kind.
I immediately thought of like, I have to talk to Eli. We have to talk to him. So thank you again for being on the show and taking the time to
Thank
talk
you.
to me today. I appreciate you. So let me ask, because I follow you all the time and I'm just like
Hmm.
excited to see what you post. But something caught my attention in the most recent post that you made where
Hmm.
you talked openly about growing up smaller, skinnier, and feeling less robust than your peers. Can
Hmm.
you take us back to that time and what do you mean by that?
So I am always not the fittest among my peers. So say for example, like in my primary school or during my secondary school in America, you guys call it high school, I was
Hmm.
always that smaller kid physically
Okay.
and probably mentally as well because I hated school, so I'm not a very academic student, and I
Um,
didn't do as well as a lot of my peers. So physically, I'm smaller, and mentally, I also don't feel as smart or as clever as many of the kids.
okay.
And I'm not originally from Singapore, but I grew up in Singapore. So my heritage is very complicated, to be honest.
Mm, hmm. Hmm.
My mom, she's half Indonesian. So my dad is Chinese, but they somehow met in Hong Kong, and that's
Wow.
where I was conceived. And then they migrated to Singapore when I was just a young little boy at about 2 or 3 years old. So we are always seen as a little bit different, not in a bad way, but more of like a third culture kid way in
Yeah.
Singapore.
Yeah.
And people always kind of like caught on that I am a little bit different in terms of how I speak as well. So I
Hmm.
also kind of get mocked or made fun of based on some of the pronunciation of the words that I use or some of the terms that I use might be a
Okay.
little bit different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I kind of like mean that I'm always feeling a little bit smaller
Mm,
mentally
hmm.
and physically.
Okay. Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I totally relate to that. Growing up here in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that people see is like, oh, okay, you're black, you're African American,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want to call you in that particular moment. But
Uh-huh.
then, like in my family, sure, there's black, we have Caucasian,
Mm.
we have Italian blood. So there's so many, we're all kind of mixed up.
Mm.
And that can make you feel a little isolated at times.
Mm.
But I mean, you wear it so beautifully, and I mean, it's flawless. But I understand completely what you're saying. So, with all of that you just shared, how did that help you? Like, how have you shaped your sense of self worth? Because although I know you say you feel small at times, but
Mm.
there's something in there that is still pushing you forward, if that makes sense. So how have you used it to shape your self worth?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I
Okay.
mean, I never really thought about it because all this while I thought I was just kind of like I was just accepting it. I thought like those people are just like making fun of me. They're not malicious
Mm-hmm.
with their words. Because
Yeah.
kids are just kids. You know,
Just
like they can be
teasing.
quite. They're just teasing,
Yeah.
exactly. So I never really kind of like thought about it. But I think as I grew older, and especially now when I'm going through this journey of self discovery, and it's starting to kind of like transpire that I have all these insecurities that might stem from me being a child being always being made fun of,
Right.
feeling smaller than
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my peers. So in terms of how I transcend is that there's no answer to it. I'm always possibly my parents. You know,
Yeah.
my dad, he's a very hardworking man.
Okay.
Uh, he always he wakes up at about 6 7 o'clock in the morning, regardless. And he's always trying and always working. So probably I picked up some from my parents
Yeah. To learn how to persist.
to learn how
Persist
to
with it.
persist. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
That's the answer there, I guess.
exactly.
That is your answer. So going from that, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Eli is an amazing model. Your photos are just amazing. You know, for me, I love looking at beautiful people, and I count you as one of those
Oh,
people.
you're too
But
kind.
when we see your photos, it's just like there's so much more at play there. There's like a soul there that you want to to learn about. And like I said earlier, that there's this warmth about you. So going from that moment in the adolescence with the teasing and, you know, how did modeling enter the picture for you?
Being, I think when I first when I first became a model, one of the first advice that I was given was, be yourself.
Okay.
And it's such a simple two word, but it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
Not at all. So, and when I first got the advice, it's actually the first time that I've heard somebody say to me, just be yourself.
Okay.
So I thought like, oh, that's like easy because like I just have to be like crazy and wild and like goofy and things like that.
Right.
But
Right.
that's just the surface area. And it took
Yeah.
me 3 years. I'm only start to realize maybe like end of last year when I start to kind of like dive down on why I'm not getting jobs or why am I struggling? Why do I feel like I'm always struggling?
Okay.
So I started to do more research about it. So I think modeling has kind of like brought me to this spiritual journey surprisingly, and
Yeah.
I am very grateful for this opportunity
That is
to
amazing.
to allow myself to kind of discover who I am as a person, because I don't think a lot of jobs are out there that allows you to kind of give you a space to kind of like discover yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know there are a lot of bad raps with like, oh, models are like in this industry is very toxic and
Yeah.
such, but maybe I'm not as huge of a model and I have the space for me to kind of learn and grow and develop and discover.
Yeah.
So I see there are always good positive way of like seeing things rather than seeing things from a negative light,
I
and that's
like
how
that very much
how
about
I
you.
always see things.
Yeah, you're very positive. Let me ask you, so did someone see you like out, you know how you hear these stories about models being discovered? Like,
Hmm.
I'm still in the grocery store myself waiting to be discovered and nobody's ever approached me about modeling.
You never know.
So for you, did someone approach you or say like, what was the moment that took you to modeling? Like, how did you get into it? Like, where were you?
It's
Like, who did you say, "Oh, I want to be a model," or did someone discover you?
it's quite a long story actually. So
Okay,
yes, in a way.
okay. Well, you can give us a
So
short story.
you want a short story? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So the short story
Then
is
we'll have you come
I
back for the long one.
so I moved to Belfast and
Okay.
I had no jobs. So I was in between jobs and I was like trying to like find my way around in a new city. And the filming industry here is huge because of Game of Thrones. It was all shot here in
Oh,
Northern Ireland.
oh, I love that.
And at that time I was doing uh extras, being an extra on set for this Superman TV series called Krypton 2.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. So I was doing hair and makeup, and the makeup artist or the hairstylist was there, and they said to me like, "Oh, you have this a really unique look about you. That you have like these high cheekbones, and such." And they said you should try modeling. So I'm like, "Oh, but I'm not tall enough. I don't have the build. I don't have this. I don't have that." And they
Oh
said,
my
"No,
gosh.
you have to try. You have to try it." And I said like, "But I don't know anyone here. I'm like literally new to the city."
Yeah.
So I'm actually still in contact with this hairstylist. He's an amazing person.
Okay.
So he referred me to my first modeling agent here locally in Belfast. So that's how I got my first modeling contract
You're
in the
modeling
UK.
under.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Hmm.
Isn't that funny when we say these things? Like I'm listening to you say that you ran down this list immediately of the things that you weren't. Like you didn't think that you were tall enough. You didn't think that you had the look. And it's just like
Yeah.
clearly looking at you, it's just like, are you insane? And I know the guy probably was like, yeah, okay, just get out there and get to modeling.
To
You
be
know?
honest, to be honest, now I feel that I don't have the build as well because I'm 5'9", so I'm of an average height.
Oh,
And for models are usually like maybe 6'1", 6'2", and I was dropped last year for being too short
oh
from one of
no.
the agency. Yeah. So,
But you look so tall on social media. I'm just thinking like, wow, he's just at least like 6'5" or something.
oh no, I'm like 5'9".
Wow.
The other way around.
Well, they're missing out on something. So, you know, 5'9", who cares about an inch? Jeez. Well, I'm
I
sure
know.
you're still going forward with yeah, that's kind of funny, but I thought they kind of were kind of sticklers like if they want you to be a runway model, like I guess there's all type of things in place to kind of shake things up, what you say, as
Yeah,
far as eliminating people in the modeling world.
yeah. It can be quite cruel sometimes, and I think that's why I'm going through this kind of like self-discovery journey and confidence building journey because it's so easy to get beaten down,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just how you can pick yourself up again
Wow.
and find ways to work things around and try to find ways to to do things that work for you,
Right, in
as
your
a
favor.
person individual, yeah, in my favor
Yeah.
personally, and also not take things too personally as well. So there's a fine
Right.
balance. It's like ego, but you cannot play too much on the ego because when you're modeling, you're actually not modeling for yourself, but
Yeah.
for the brand, for the client.
Yes, yes.
You know.
You know, that is one of the questions when I was thinking of what can I ask Eli this week? And
uh
I think for me, I'm just so astonished at the person that you are behind the modeling because like I said, here in the United States, normally when someone looks the way you look, they are not nice. You know, their personality.
no.
They are not a person of substance. Like they don't have anything really going on inside, but you absolutely are different from that. And it's very refreshing to hear you be so transparent about where you are in the modeling. And there's this beauty to your vulnerability, that you have, that you're still working,
Yeah.
and I think that's what makes you such an awesome model and individual, and I really feel like you're going to go far with that. I really do. It's amazing. So stay that way.
You're too kind. I've got
No,
too much
please
compliment
do.
just from you.
Oh man. No, I mean it seriously. It's good and it
Thank
shows.
you.
And speaking of you being transparent, I was surprised to find out about the whole scoliosis challenge that you shared on social media recently. You shared about living with scoliosis and being open about your body. Why is that transparency so important to you?
I didn't know that I have scoliosis until I was about 18 or so, 18 or 19, and I thought I just stood on one leg and my body is just leaning on one side. It's just how I stood differently. So, so I wasn't aware of it, and it just progressed until it got kind of like obvious, and I went for a scan and it was scoliosis, and I had to go for a surgery. So, and even after I went for the surgery, I felt kind of alone as well because there's nobody around me that has got scoliosis, and
Mm,
nobody actually really talked about it at that point of time, which was, I can't remember, 2009. That was when I had scoliosis,
okay.
when I had my scoliosis surgery. So I thought to maybe just bring it out and to see how many people are there to that are also having similar experiences as myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Wow. Well, you know what? I don't have scoliosis, but I will say from you sharing that, I do have some back
uh,
issues. And by you sharing that, there has been a lot of days where your story has inspired me to like get over it because I understand what you're saying. It's like there's something about when you have that diagnosis and it's your back, or anything really that's different or feeling, you do feel so isolated, and you feel like no one's going through it. And I know back pain is a common thing in
Yeah.
society, but I feel so isolated in the depths of my pain, like, when it really was just going on. And I get what you're saying because it is very isolating. And I have to just say thank you to you for sharing that about your condition, because that really made me say, okay, if he can deal with this, I have not had to have surgery, so I need to kind of just like kick this thing in the butt and keep moving forward. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something that is important, and I can't even imagine how many other people have heard this coming from you, and that it's very inspiring, is what I want to say.
I think even in a way whereby like last year I have a full-time job and I do my workout and things like that regularly to try to strengthen my core. But last year there was a point whereby I just tied my shoelace, I stood up and I felt something on my back, and it wasn't painful or anything, but it just progressed to a point whereby I couldn't even walk properly. And
Oh,
I still went to work, I still went into my office and things like that, but I wasn't standing straight. And I'm not a person who believes in painkillers. So
me either. Me either. I'm scared of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. So because what happened was when I did my surgery, they gave me morphine,
Hmm.
and it just didn't work well with my stomach and things like that. So
Yeah.
I remember like everything just went the other way around. So that kind of like traumatizes me with like painkillers, and I never took any until if I really really need it. But last year was a point of time whereby I need to take some,
Right.
and it took me about a month to kind of recover from the backache. But if not, I don't want to always seem like to be known as like the guy who had back surgery and everyone needs to be there to help me.
Hmm.
I want to feel like I'm able, so I will still do things and carry on to do things normally like a regular person, and nobody will actually kind of know that I have had a spine fusion surgery before. And now it comes to a point where I feel that it's actually quite important to voice out and let people know that I have had this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Bill, because they look at you, and I mean, I consider myself a very well informed person, but even with looking at you for the first time, I'm just like, oh, this guy has it all together. It's like, oh, he has this going, that, and they don't know what you're actually dealing with beneath the surface. So I think
Yep.
it's so incredible that you have been transparent and vulnerable enough to share that, because just like you, I don't tell anybody like, oh, I don't get on social media, oh, my stomach's hurting today. I'm
Yeah.
not looking for pity, I'm not looking for sympathy.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of times when you're in pain and you're just simply just trying to persevere
Yeah.
and just trying to make it through. So the fact that you're sharing this now is so important and it's so major, because a lot of people carry pain silently. Why do you think why do people like us carry pain and don't talk about it? What do you think that is?
I think it could be shame or something. Like I don't want to be sick because it's a fine line of people thinking that are you complaining? And
Yeah.
I don't want people to think that I'm like complaining because I look normal, and I
Hmm.
always thought to myself like I look normal, and if I keep telling people that I have scoliosis, is it like I'm seeking kind of like pity from people? And I don't want
Right.
that. I want.
Yeah, because some people may be like, no, he doesn't. He's fine. He's perfect. He wants attention.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and but now I come to a point whereby, especially as I'm trying to build my confidence, I think it's like so important to just have a voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I've been doing all this aesthetic. Can I say shit?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want here. Let me say it too.
I'm
Shit.
Yeah, shit. I'm
Yeah, you
so
can say
done
whatever you
with
want.
I'm so done with all this Instagram aesthetic shit and
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
that people have all this perfect lifestyle and like I'm going for this nice dinner, nice cruise, nice holiday and all, but
It's
if
not
you speak to
real.
them, it's not real.
It's
You
not
know,
real.
I am so done with it and I just want to that's why there's like a whole pivot in my whole content that I just want to journal my what's in my head down
Yeah. Share your thoughts.
immediately and share my thoughts as
Well, you
it
know
is.
what? That leads me to my next question I was going to ask you. In a world, especially being on social media, where there's this huge obsession with perfection,
Yeah.
which is so disgusting.
Yeah.
How do you stay grounded? How do you stay grounded in your story? Like,
I don't.
yeah, yeah,
It's so difficult, you know. I've been doing that, and I want everything to look nice, everything to be perfect. I post my photo shoot picture, which is heavily photoshopped. I
yeah,
photoshopped my own pictures back then.
yeah,
Now, now I just don't care. I just journal things down, as I said, and just post everything. And it's only very recent, the last maybe 2 3 months or like this year, I started doing that. And even this year when I started doing that, I still don't feel 100% myself.
yeah.
So I think it's absolutely okay to pivot
Hmm.
and to try different things with social media until something clicks. At this point of my life, it's about confidence building, but maybe 6 months down the road, it could be different,
Yeah, yeah,
and I could be sharing other things, but I definitely wouldn't be sharing aesthetic shit.
yeah, yeah. I don't. You know what? It feels so good to get away from that. I
Yeah,
know I used to try to make every moment so perfect on social media, and I wanted every hair to be in place, every
absolutely.
look to be, and just like now, it's just like if I post a story and there's anything out of place, it's like I don't care. It's just like it
Yeah,
feels so good to not have to.
yes,
Oh well, let me see who looked. Like I was constantly checking to see who liked it, or maybe I
yeah,
didn't look this way, or I'll erase a post. I used to erase a post and be like, oh, my teeth didn't look that white in that one.
absolutely.
Let me do another photo. It's just like
Yeah,
now it's just like this is what you're getting.
yeah,
Um, and the people that like it, they'll love it,
yeah. To
without
be
all of
honest,
that
like,
pretending.
yeah, absolutely. To be honest, like, uh, it's so heartwarming, especially like the last two posts that I've posted. And one of the posts that I posted was about like body confidence and scoliosis. And people with scoliosis actually DM me personally,
Mm. Oh my.
and they share with me their story, or they drop a DM and he said like he's a 60-year-old man and he just had scoliosis surgery 2 months ago, and it's just nice to have genuine connection rather than having comments of like two hearts or
Yeah.
like, oh, that looks amazing. You know
Yeah.
what does that even mean? And like, does that it's just vanity?
Right.
You're not building connection, or like there's
Exactly.
no there's no purpose.
Well, it's an emptiness. Like I
It's
said,
emptiness.
clearly you're a model. Clearly you have the best hair on Instagram. But what's more important is that you're actually a person, and that brings so
Absolutely.
much value to you because whether it's through scoliosis or trying to secure the best contract, modeling, it's like you're sharing those moments, and that means so much to people who otherwise wouldn't think they could aspire to even being someone like you. So it's so important, and I love that for you that people are DMing you, and you're resonating with a lot of people. That's amazing. That's good. That's gonna
I
make you feel good.
I'm actually surprised because I thought nobody would. I mean, I'm still affected by vanity matrix.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a
it's part of
journey.
your job. It's part of your
It's
job too.
so when I post that, I'm like, I still get nervous of like I'm showing too much of myself,
Hmm.
like, so I'm like checking like, okay, nobody cares, and in the afternoon people start texting me and DMing me, and I'm like, okay, like people are resonating, and I'm
I
actually
think I
happy.
think we'll always have that little bit of just okay, you want to show yourself off as being the best. Because I know this morning I was just like, okay, let me find something that looks really nice,
Yeah.
really chic. I want to put on my best eyewear because I mean, I'm interviewing Eli. It's like I have to
Yeah.
look presentable for him.
Can I look at the screen? I want to see your eyewear now. Let me just click on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I love
it's
these.
a nice eye. I love it.
Thank
I love
you.
it.
Thank
Yeah.
you very
It's a
much.
nice red. The red looks nice on you.
Thank you so much. I just picked these
Uh-huh.
up from Warby Parker. So if Warby
Uh-huh.
Parker, if you're listening and you want to sponsor me, and then you want to have Eli do some modeling, you know where to reach
Yes,
us.
please. Yeah.
That is great. So listen, you live in Belfast. That's got to be amazing. What is it like? Let me ask. What is it like being an Asian model in Northern Ireland? What's that like?
The market here is quite small actually,
Okay.
but so modeling here is quite supplementary.
Okay.
So hence I have a full-time job, and I'm very appreciative for my full-time job as well because I have the best colleagues, the most understanding colleagues.
Yeah.
Uh, the people here are really really nice. Like they are humble, they are genuine, they are very very helpful.
Wow.
So and I get the nicest scenery. Countryside is like 10 minutes drive away, and you get rolling hills like you're in Teletubby land. So
Yeah. It's beautiful that when I discovered that you lived in Northern Ireland, I was like, wow, what would it be like to just see all that beautiful green all the time?
I know.
Jeez.
That was literally me when I first came here. I'm like, oh my god.
Really? I would be
Yeah.
out. I would literally be out exploring all day long. I'm sure it gets old after a while because you see it, but that's beautiful. That's amazing.
It is beautiful. And I do get some interesting jobs though. Like I once went to like a small town and did like a fashion show for like women in business.
Okay.
So that was a fun one because in like the dining area in the hotel, it's just everyone is like women, and I was like shouting my thing, and I
Okay.
was like, what am I doing here in this suit?
It took you to a whole different adventure.
I know. So I started dancing, and this female model next to me, we became friends. We are still in contact, and she was like
Wow.
dancing next to me, and they're like, oh, they love you. I'm like, oh, do they really love me because I'm not a good dancer? So I was
You
never
just did
hired
it
again
for
by the
that
same
dance.
person.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's amazing. I think sometimes the best dancers are the ones who can't.
I call it the wiggle.
Oh, goodness. I bet it was good. Look, that was a memorable moment. I'm sure the whole room remembers you then.
I'm not sure, but I was never hired again.
Oh, oh man, I missed that. Oh my goodness, that is so funny. That is funny. Let
It's
me
hilarious.
ask that how does the industry talk about diversity now? I know that you've got to hear about our president here in the States, and there's a lot of diversity that's being, well, on the verge of being eliminated. And I'm just curious, in your part of the world and in modeling and just anything, how does the industry talk about diversity and how much of it is real, would you say?
I'm just saying based on my experience, but not it might not be facts.
Hmm.
So I personally feel like there's two spectrum
Okay.
to it. It's either like you're like Kendall Jenner, you're like Ford
Hmm.
model from Storm, from Elite, or you are like part of the diverse you're in like a diverse modeling agency, which is one that I'm in
Right.
London. So it's very hard, and even with like diverse modeling, there's like a whole spectrum of diversity.
Yeah.
So you can be a model with Down syndrome, uh, one of the biggest model in my agency. Her name is Ali Golding. She's a model with Down syndrome, and
Okay.
she is huge. She was a face for Gucci Beauty,
Yeah, I
and
remember her. I remember
yeah.
her.
So
Wow.
she is massive, or like they will look for models with visible kind of like disability more than
Mm,
people who are with invisible disabilities,
yeah.
such
Yeah.
as like myself, because you can't really see it and I might just look like a regular person.
Right. Right.
So I feel like there's still a lot of like tokenism going around
Okay. How
with
important do you
diversity.
think it is to keep that diversity in modeling?
I think it's pretty important in a to a certain extent, because when I look at runway, yes, there are beautiful creation and beautiful garments on the runway,
Mm,
but and when I got into modeling, and that's what I aspire to be, but I am so defeated by it because I'm 5'9",
yeah.
as I said before. So and I know that it's very hard for me to become like a high fashion model or a runway model.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like maybe literally almost impossible for me to get on the runway.
Wow.
So say for example, even for like a main like a high street high fashion brand, it's almost impossible. And sometimes it's very hard to relate to those beautiful garments because everyone is like so perfect to a
Mm,
certain extent,
yeah.
and I know they sometimes put like a plus size model or like some other models, but it's still like tokenism, and it would be
Yeah.
nice to see.
Absolutely.
It's more than different faces, because we get different models of different ethnicities, but how about like different body shapes,
Right.
different type of models, with different
It'll be nice to
disabilities.
see people who are real.
Yes,
You
that's
know,
right. Who are real.
that's the thing. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And I am a huge supporter of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I think a lot of times people only relate that to color. And
Yeah.
while color is important, what I think is even more important is being inclusive of realness,
Yeah.
of
Absolutely.
imperfections. It's just like the average person is not perfectly symmetrical in the face,
Yeah.
or body
Yeah.
shape. And so I think that's so important,
Yeah.
to have that diversity. Um, Speaking of like rejection, I know you shared about being 5'9" and like right at that
Mm.
point of
Yeah.
being able to do certain jobs and not being able to do certain jobs. So
Mm.
how do you process hearing no? And what do you tell yourself when a job doesn't come through that you're thinking that you may be wanting to do, but the 5'9" comes up? You know, what do you tell
Most of the
yourself?
time, most of the time they don't even send you a reply.
Okay,
So you just wait and you wait for nothing.
right. Yeah.
So,
And that
yeah.
hurts. That hurts. Because it's
Yes,
like you're waiting for nothing, literally.
waiting for nothing. And I counted recently, I did about 80 self tapes
Wow.
and 80 self tapes and literally I only got like maybe two jobs from the 80 self tapes
Mm,
that I've done for the last 3 years.
wow.
So, but I think I'm quite immune to it right now. I just, you know, I've learned how to not to take things personally, because maybe I'm just not suited for the job, and maybe they are looking for somebody else that is more suitable for the job at the time, for that project.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. You know what I like to think myself, because I've handled rejection a lot myself,
mhm,
being a
yeah,
creative. And what I've learned to tell myself is that maybe they were looking for less than I am,
good. That's
because
a
I
good
think,
one.
you
Yep.
know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times
Yeah,
I think we feel like, oh, we're not enough or we're not doing enough. And
yep,
clearly we're doing a lot.
yep,
We're doing a
absolutely.
lot. But I think a lot of times too, we're overqualified. And I think
Yeah,
that's the same thing for you. And they're looking at you like, one thing that I used to get all the time is that we like you, we like what you're doing, but we don't know what to do with you.
yeah.
because
I
we're
think a lot
not
of
basic. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely,
We're
yeah.
not basic bitches.
Flaunt, flaunt.
Right.
But I think a lot of mistakes, including myself, that I've made is that because I think a lot of models we need to kind of it's like navigating everything is like navigation, trying to find your way through a journey. There's nobody guiding models how to do things. It's like we are just okay, we like you, you're assigned, and then like if you're a lucky
Yeah.
model, you get a lot of jobs,
Right.
immediately. And if
Right.
you're not so lucky like myself, I have to work harder
Right.
to kind of like find ways to like, okay, maybe I need to try this, maybe I need to try that, I need to pivot a little bit. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of models, like myself, is that I went too creative in a way with all my portfolio updates and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's also a fine line of where how creative you are and how commercially viable you want to be.
Right.
So
Right.
if you become too creative with your test shoots and your portfolio development, you become not relatable to
Right.
possibly
Because
the
they want you to
clients.
be like a cardboard cutout. And it makes it
Absolutely.
easier
Yeah.
for them to put you in places,
Yeah.
and give you a category. This
Yeah.
is what you mean. So I totally
And at the
understand that.
same time, they want some unique features from you. So it's like
Right.
where
But
where
not
is the
too much.
balance?
It's not too
Yeah.
much. Just enough to
Not too
keep you
much.
crazy. They want you to
Yes.
stay on edge. Like,
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
totally, I totally get that. Wow. I never thought that. Well, I guess all the industries are alike. I have a friend who's an actor.
Hmm.
You're a model, and I've been a musician, and
I've
that was
listened to your
one of the
music.
things. Well, have you?
Yes, I
Oh my
did. I
gosh!
went to
Thank
Apple
you.
Music and I searched for Corey. I'm like, yay, I'm gonna
Oh my
listen. It's
gosh!
great. I love it.
Oh wow! Thank you for
So
even
soulful.
listening. Thank you so
Uh-huh.
much. I appreciate that. But one of the things I was going to say, like, what used to really get under my skin was how they want to categorize you in the music
Mm,
industry also. It's
yeah.
like I want to sing Broadway one day, or maybe one day I want to sing classical, and then they
Yeah.
can tell you no, you can only be one thing,
Mm,
because people need to know that you're one thing. And it's
yeah.
just like that drives me crazy because it's like I'm not just one thing every
Yes.
day. I
Yeah.
like country music sometimes, but that doesn't
Yeah.
make me a country artist. But they want to put that label on you. And I'm learning from you that that's the same in modeling. They
It's
want you
the
to
same
have
in modeling.
uniqueness, but at the same time, they want you to be uniform.
Yes, absolutely. There's like many
Uh,
different layers to us, like you say, like we are just not one layer of person.
right.
There's like maybe like myself with when I'm like modeling, and then like when I'm a regular person I'm this, and then when I'm like maybe when I'm cooking I'm this person, and when I go to work I'm like this person,
Right.
and we are
Jeez.
complex creatures.
And there's so much to us, and we're constantly learning.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Eli, what is something about you that people miss or don't expect when they first meet you?
Uh, I'm a very shy and introverted person.
Wow. And see, I couldn't tell that. If I didn't know
Really?
you behind the scenes, I would be like, there's no way he's shy. There's no way he's
Uh,
shy. But I get it. I understand.
I am so shy. I used to find it very, very difficult to speak to any people, and I would just close up, and
Mm,
I get nervous, or I say the wrong thing, or like but that's what I think. Like more people always have like bad raps about like being like a model or like a creative person, but I feel like
mm,
modeling actually pushed me out of the shell.
yeah.
Because I have to work together as a team.
Yeah.
So it's so important to focus on the positive than the negative.
Mm-hmm.
At least for
Yeah.
me, there
I
are
think for
two
all of
sides.
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are two sides of the coins, and there are equal sides, positive and negative.
Yeah.
So it's just which side
100%.
you want to focus on. So yeah,
Exactly.
what
Jeez.
they would not expect from me is that I love to have a tub of ice cream and just sit and watch Netflix and just
I
recharge my
know.
brain.
I know. Oh my God. And they would never expect that you're even, they probably think you're working out 24 hours, 7 days a
No,
week, never touch ice cream. Like they look at me, they know I'm eating ice cream.
I love ice creams and I love sweets, candies.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, I I went. I was just last month. I went to Paris for a job,
Mm.
and I love the cola bottles, from Paris from the supermarket, Carrefour.
Oh,
So I
okay.
bought 3 bags and I bought it back and I finished them within a week.
Took
I
care
was
of it, didn't
like,
you? You deserved it. You
I love
deserved
it.
it. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with having something good every now and again.
No, we all have to treat ourselves, isn't it?
You better treat yourself. No one else is
Hmm.
going to.
Absolutely.
So, Eli, if you could go back and sit next to your younger self, that shy, that insecure, uncertain boy who was
Hmm.
obviously being teased,
Yeah.
um, you know, the one that felt out of place, what would you tell him about the future?
Don't give a fuck. Be brave and just keep going. Try
Yeah,
and take up any opportunities that you have, and just
yeah.
keep trying.
Jeez,
Not
that was
just for
good.
myself, but for everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We got to
It's
get them out
literally
of there.
just it's literally just don't give a fuck. I think
Yeah, yeah.
that is a revelation for me.
And you can't, and it, like I said earlier, if doesn't it feel good when you don't anymore?
Yeah,
When you just
absolutely.
don't. It's just like whatever,
Yeah, it's just
whatever.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you have to
How about
stay
you?
focused. It's the same with me. It. I used to worry a lot about people's perception of me
Mm,
and who they would think that I am because I experienced the teasing also when I was younger because I was different than everyone
yeah.
else. And all the way into adult life, it's just like, I don't want to be the last one to walk in the room because all eyes are on me,
Yeah.
and it's just like, regardless of how I felt, people were always going to have something to say, or they're always going to think,
Yeah.
or say something that's out of line. So it just got to the point where I'm just like, whatever, this is just what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
People like it and love it. And to my surprise, a lot of times people I find are just very curious about who you are,
Yeah.
and they just want to know more. I mean, there's some people that still want to be mean, but a lot of times I think people are just really, really curious as
Yeah.
to, what's going on. What I was curious about you when I saw you for the first time. I'm just like, wow, he's
Uh-huh.
making kimchi. But then my mind's like, well, where is he? Why is he doing this? And so I think it's human nature to want to go further and be curious. But like you said, you can't give a fuck about what
Mm,
people think and what they're doing. You just have to move forward, and we have to
yeah.
keep creating. Right? That
Absolutely.
is that is powerful.
Yeah. There are there are mean people, but I find that mean people they might have some sort of like insecurities with themselves.
Yeah, and they're a little obsessed with you. Have you noticed
Mm-hmm.
that? Like
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
mean to you, they're just a little bit obsessed with you.
Yeah. And it's just their own insecurity, and like if you just ignore them, and that's fine. And people who are like curious about you, you will kind of know that genuinely they are like nice people,
Yeah.
and sometimes I feel like even I myself put too much focus on myself, and that's why there's anxiety,
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
you know.
You have to
So if you
stop thinking
step up,
about yourself. You have to stop
yeah,
thinking about yourself.
yeah,
That's the biggest thing. I think anxiety depends on you thinking about
mm,
yourself.
yeah,
And if you
yeah,
can get out of sight of that, it's just like you will be safe as long as you can get away from your thoughts
mm,
and get out and
yeah.
do something that's
It's
helping
so
or
freeing.
sharing. It is like shooting the videos, like the vlogging. Doesn't that feel good
Yeah,
to get it out there and just
absolutely.
work on
Speak your
something that
mind.
you can say, and it's good
Yeah.
for your mind. So we share that 100%.
It's so therapeutic. It's like giving myself therapy. I've never been to therapy,
Oh,
but this
oh,
is
I
like,
have. I have.
uh-huh.
And a lot of times after I get done, like doing something like we're doing now, I'll cancel my therapist, and my therapist is like, "No, you still need to come to." But I'm like, "No, I feel great now this week," and she's like, "Okay,
I just
you
had my own
created."
therapy.
Yeah,
I
just
just
that. I just
therapized
gave it to
myself.
myself. Yeah, it's time for ice cream now. So
Do
that
you
way I
do you
can
love
save
to
five
cry?
hundred dollars. I can save $500.
I know. Do you love to cry?
You know what? I don't cry. I think what I do is I'll just sit in that realm of sadness, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I don't cry. I'm not a crier. I'm more of a laugher. Like I'll
Okay.
laugh. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
The reason why I ask because I'm an absolute weeper. I cry at every single
Oh,
thing.
really?
So
I think
and
people that can do that, I think people that do that are wonderful. I don't know. I
but
can't get over it.
I don't cry because I'm sad.
Yeah, but that's one of
So
your emotions you're just letting out.
yes. So I actually created a content yesterday. I wanted to say which I will post tomorrow. So
Okay.
and I was just speaking my mind and I was just crying all the way through.
Oh, wow.
And I was like drawing my thoughts. Like, I was even like sleeping, and I'm like, okay, I need to get this out of my head. But it's like a good cry,
Good cry. I wish I could do that.
you know. And even before I was like talking to you now, I was trying to edit that clip. I was like watching through my own edits of like that short 3 minutes reel.
Oh,
I was crying all the way just an hour before we had a conversation.
oh my gosh, Eli. Jeez. Okay, you've got to get me there to that level where maybe that's such a release, right?
It is a release, but it's I mean everyone process emotions differently.
Okay.
You know, for
Okay.
you like to laugh, and maybe for me, I genuinely enjoy crying. Maybe not a lot of people will will kind of
Well,
understand that, but it's like the new hobby in a way.
oh, wow. I think it's just you're releasing. You're releasing,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and not every tear is about sadness. So
absolutely.
I think you're going to motivate me to do some more meditation this week, and I'm going to try to tap
Yeah.
into that to try to. I mean, I should be full of water. I should be able to cry at some point. I'll keep you posted on that to
Ah.
let you know. So, Eli, listen, what would you say to a young girl or boy who doesn't feel beautiful today, or feels awkward or different, maybe living with a disability or something that sets them apart from what they think is normal? What would you tell them if they have a dream of being a model or just being out there in the public eye? What would you tell them? What type of advice would you give?
Well, uh, that's quite deep actually. If it's a young boy, I mean, for me, I only started recently discovering all this self-discovery journey. So I think possibly be kind to yourself, and
Yeah.
you don't have to compare yourself to other people because there's always going to be other people who are going to be more beautiful than you, more handsome
Mhm.
than you, taller than you, better built than you. You know, you just have to find your soul and find your purpose, and that I can't guide because that's something that that individual, that boy or that girl will have to go through that journey to find their own value,
Mm.
to heal whatever or to discover themselves. You know,
Yeah.
so just be kind to yourself and try. You know, just try in life and seize opportunity. Like I would say
Wow.
to my younger self. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Back
Yeah.
to that younger self. Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, my friend.
Thank
Listen,
you.
I have to thank you again for sharing yourself with me here on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I am officially inviting you back. You know that.
I would love that anytime.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, and we have a lot of growth, you know.
A lot of growth, a lot of doors to open.
A lot of doors to open. I really love that. I really
Yeah.
do. Jeez, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gosh, that's great. Where can people that want to learn more about scoliosis, the modeling, and just, gain some positivity, where do you want them to reach out to you?
Just on my Instagram, on my socials,
Okay.
Just drop me a DM. I reply to all my DMs. I reply
That's
to all
right.
my
Drop the DM.
comments, and just speak with me, and I will try my best to answer and anything that I can answer, and to
That's
anyone,
amazing.
as long
That's
as you're not
amazing.
mean.
Yeah, no, we don't talk to mean people. But listen, and I'll share also all of your links in this episode. But
Thank you.
so much, Eli. Thank you so much. And
I love
have
it.
a wonderful day in those green hills of Ireland for us. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.